Accept our apologies for keeping you waiting for this long.
It's been a long day, Chief
Yes,
Justice.
yes. Now, after completion of your degree, where did you begin to work?
I started serving articles at a firm in Rustenburg called Setsedi Makhale Attorneys. And
In
thereafter,
Tlhabane?
in Tlhabane, yes, Chief Justice. And thereafter, I was admitted. And then I worked with them as a professional assistant. And then thereafter, I moved to the university at the law clinic.
When were you admitted as an attorney?
I was admitted in 1998. Chief
1998.
Justice. Yes.
And for how long were you with them, with the Setsedi Makhale attorneys?
I served my articles with them for 2 years. And then after admission in 1998, I was with them until the year 2000.
So for
as a
about 2
professional-
years?
For about 2 years as a professional assistant.
Yes.
Yes, Chief Justice.
And then with the law clinic?
I was with the law clinic for a period of a year almost, because I joined the law clinic in 2000, around April until 2001.
Yes.
Yes.
And then what happened?
Thereafter, Chief Justice, I was appointed as a magistrate in the district court in Klerksdorp in 2001 October. I served as such until the year 2004 as a magistrate, and thereafter I was appointed in the regional court in 2004 in Mabatu until today.
So for how many years have you been a magistrate now? I haven't worked it out, and I'm not a numbers person.
As a district magistrate, it was for a period of 3 years, and now as a regional magistrate from 2004 until now, it's, I think it would be about 13 years, if I'm not wrong,
Yes.
yes. So all in all, it's about 16 years, Chief Justice.
As a judicial officer?
Yes, Chief Justice.
Yes. And for how long have you acted as a judge?
I've started acting in 2013, and I was called from time to time since that time until now. Put together, it's 9 terms that I have been acting in the High Court.
Yes.
Yes, Chief
Did
Justice.
you find it easy to move from being a regional court magistrate to acting as a judge of the High Court, or was it a serious challenge?
Well, as far as what is expected of a presiding officer, it wasn't that difficult, because having been a magistrate for that long, I knew what was expected of me as a presiding officer. And with criminal matters as well, I did not see it as much of a challenge. The only thing was that as a magistrate, I wasn't exposed to civil litigation.
Yes.
So when I got to the High Court, I was fortunate enough that the JP exposed me more to civil litigation than criminal. And with the guidance of the judges there as well, it was easier then for me to cope with the work there and growing and gaining experience with civil litigation.
Yes.
And I knew what was expected of me as a presiding officer. I knew exactly what I had to do as presiding in those matters.
Yes.
Yes.
Any challenges relating to judgment writing?
The thing with judgment writing, Chief Justice, is just for you to start writing, because it's always a bit difficult to start. But once you start,
Yep.
no matter where you start, as long as you can start writing, it comes and it flows. And especially that you know that as a presiding officer, you owe it to the parties, to the litigants, to write a judgment for them to know what is happening.
Yes.
So the sooner you start writing, putting your thoughts together, it gets better. And I felt that it was also made easier by the courses that I attended on judgment writing. I was fortunate to be exposed to training by the South African Judicial Education Institute, where judgment writing was one of the topics that was dealt with in that, and I attended the advanced training thereafter, where we also had to write judgments.
Was it training organized for magistrates, or was it training organized for aspirant judges?
It was training for aspirant judges, Chief Justice.
Yes, because I thought that's where I know advanced training to be available.
Yes.
Had they already introduced the system of subjecting aspirant judges to examinations, or was it before then?
I don't know if I should call them examination, Chief Justice, because at the advanced course, what was required of us was that we would be given case studies.
Yes.
Where we were expected to write judgments.
To test your...
To test our ability
your
to...
ability.
Yes, to determine issues from matters that we were given, write a judgment as speedily as possible, and hand it up the following day, typed and ready to go.
Well, can people fail, or out of respect does everybody pass? Or out of courtesy?
I don't think that we would say that everybody passed, but what we were told is that we would be ranked as to the performance of how we wrote the judgment.
Yes.
And we were not even told our results, but we were just given comments on what areas we should focus on after having a look at the judgments that were handed in.
Yes, and you say you found that exposure beneficial?
Very beneficial, Chief Justice. As soon as I had attended that course, I continued acting, and I believe that my judgment writing improved as well after I had attended that course.
Now, what did you find, if any, to be particularly challenging at high court level? What new challenges did you have to grapple with, apart from civil litigation that you were not previously exposed to?
At first, when I started, there was the issue with attitude from some practitioners. The fact that one is a magistrate,
yes,
and you haven't practiced in the High Court, you were never an advocate, or even when you were an attorney, you did not practice in the High Court. You're a magistrate, you've been doing criminal. So you get counsel appearing in your court, and in the morning when they come to introduce themselves, they will remind you that, by the way, you're a magistrate. Is that so?
Asking as if they don't know when in fact they do.
Exactly, Chief Justice. And it would put pressure on one to say that it means I must show them that I have read, I have prepared, and I know exactly what is happening.
Yes.
So at times I would feel pressured by the fact that I see that there's an attitude from practitioners that they might hold a view that I don't know what I'm doing,
yes,
because I'm a magistrate. Yes.
The reports I've received from judges' presidents, most of them, is that magistrates generally struggle when they move, particularly from the district court to the High Court. Do you have any comment on that?
In my case, Chief Justice, I did not really struggle, because like I said, with the assistance of the judges that I got there, the judge that was mentoring me when I got to the division, it wasn't a struggle.
Yes.
And as I said, that as a presiding officer, I knew exactly what I am supposed to do when a matter is before me. And I worked hard. I really worked hard.
Yes.
Because the work is different. It's completely different. What you do in the district court and the regional court and the High Court is completely different.
It's different.
Yes, and when you get to the High Court, you must work hard. You really have to exert yourself so that you can cope and understand the work that you are supposed to do.
Yes. Well, maybe finally, before I give the JP the opportunity to put questions to you, what could be done to attract more women to the higher judiciary or to the high courts and specialist courts?
Chief Justice, I believe that transformation as far as gender is concerned is very important in the judiciary. And we have seen now that in the district courts, we have a lot of female magistrates.
Yes.
It will come to a point where we run out of male magistrates in the district court. And I believe that the transformation should then be encouraged in the regional courts as well, because there seems to be a problem there. There is still not a lot of women in the regional courts, because I believe women should rise through the ranks in the judiciary.
Yes.
And training is very, very important, Chief Justice. Women should be exposed to training. and they should also be exposed to acting in the division.
Yes.
I have seen that it works because I've gone through what I'm talking about, and I believe that I'm here now and I see myself as ready and fit and proper because of what I went through. So if women are taken through that process of training especially and the exposure, they will then get the confidence to
Yes.
go and sit in the High Court, because mainly the issue becomes they don't know what happens in the High Court. They don't know what is expected of them in the High Court. And like I said, it's different being a magistrate and being a judge. And once you have had that exposure, you will know what is expected and you can cope.
My experience, tell me if I'm wrong, has been that at district court level, the volume of cases is such that you don't even have the opportunity to write what can properly be referred to as a judgment, but the position is different at regional court level. Magistrates there produce what look like proper judgments. Isn't it a tall order to take them from the district court all the way up to the High Court? Isn't it a better and more enabling process to move from the district court through regional court and then the High Court?
I agree with you, Chief Justice. You are absolutely correct. Because in the district court, the type of cases that you deal with are completely different as well from the cases that you do in the regional court. And if you look at the jurisdiction of the regional court as well, as it has now been increased, you get some of the, in criminal cases, for example, some of the sentences that the regional magistrates can impose in criminal matters are similar to the sentences that are imposed in the High Court. So it's easier for a regional magistrate to cope in the High Court than for a district magistrate to go directly up to the High Court.
Yes.
Yes, Chief.
JP, over to you.
Good evening.
Good evening, JP.
The first training that you received from the High Court was when,
They are struggling to hear you again, JP.
thank you. The first training that you received as a regional court magistrate from the High Court was during that time when the jurisdiction of the regional courts were, civil jurisdiction of the magistrates court was extended, not so?
Yes, it is true.
And
JP.
that training was organized by us.
Yes, JP.
And you, all of you, not necessarily women, both male and female, were giving lectures on motion court, civil trials, conducting civil trials as well as criminal trials.
That is correct, JP.
And you were thereafter taken to the division to sit and see how motion court is being
That is
conducted.
correct. Yes, JP.
Now, when now you acted in our division, what kind of work were you doing?
JP, right from the beginning, because the Northwest is a small division, I was exposed to everything that is done in the division. And I did motion, unopposed and opposed motion. I have done civil trials. I have done appeals. I've sat in appeals, both civil and criminal. I've been involved in urgent matters as well, JP.
Do you have, can you give us, the commissioners, an idea as to how many cases you did in motion court? If you don't have the figures, you can, even if you can give an estimation.
From the time I acted?
Yes.
Phew, JP, they must be over 300. It's a lot. I remember in 2014 and 2015, when I was acting for 2 terms, there was a time when I did unopposed motion for 6 weeks in succession. And on average, you get the motion files up to 60 to 70 files per motion sitting.
And you also went on circuit court, not so?
Yes, JP.
And all the circuit courts. You went to Temba, you went to Garankuwa,
Yes, JP.
Vryburg,
And Mokwase.
and Mokwase.
Yes, JP.
Yes, and were you coping there?
Yes, I was, JP. I was able to finalize all the matters that I did on circuit.
There was no matter that you postponed on circuit?
No, JP. The only matter that I postponed was the one in Vryburg, where the 2 weeks was not enough because one attorney had to leave because of family emergency. But that was the only time when I had to postpone a matter on circuit.
And at the circuit court, was it only one matter enrolled or more than one matter?
In some circuits, I had to do two matters in 1 week, and I would go through those matters and finish them, JP, at the end of the week.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you, JP. MEC?
Thank you, Chief. Thank you, Chief Justice. Good evening, Madam Judge.
Good evening, MEC.
What exceptional experience during your 16 years of practice as a magistrate elevates you higher than any other applicant for the position?
I have already indicated that I was able to acquire the experience of presiding in a court, being an arbiter of facts, knowing that as a presiding officer, I need to listen to both sides and come with a decision. And I believe that that is one of the most important attributes or expected of a judge, to be able to listen to parties and be able to come with a decision.
Okay, thank you. Has any of your judgment been taken on appeal? And if so, were you able to identify areas of development? And have you attended to them?
Yes, in the regional court, I've had quite a few of them taken on appeal, and they would come back and having been set aside, and I would learn from them. I remember there was one matter where the judge had remarked about the way that I had approached the sentencing in that particular matter, that at times you need to have a holistic approach when it comes to sentencing. You have to look at all the circumstances and don't overemphasize the offense over the other circumstances of an offender. And from that judgment, I learned that, sentencing is a question of balancing all the circumstances that are before you. And I did attend to that. In the High Court as well, I've had matters that went on appeal and that were set aside. One of the matters that went on appeal and was set aside, I did attach it. That's the Muchumi matter, where the SCA had set it aside, but it was just a question of merits. Because when I wrote the judgment with the judge that I was sitting with, we believed that the complainant was actually raped by the appellant. And we believed the version that she had put before court of how the incident happened. But when the matter was overturned in the SCA, when they analyzed the facts, they came with a different approach, and we did see that there was something that we might have overlooked and that we should learn from that. And we were okay with it and learn from it. Thank you, MEC.
Thank you, MEC. It looks, yes, Commissioner Norman. Colleagues, if you could signify, because apart from Commissioner Norman, I don't have anybody. You don't have to.
Thank you. Thank you, Chief Justice. Good evening, Judge Djaje.
Good evening, Commissioner.
Thank you. I understand, according to what you've put up, that you're a member of the South African Women Lawyers Association.
Yes, I was.
When
Yes.
did you resign?
It's been some time ago now. I think it was in 2012, if I'm not wrong, when the association started being inactive in the province.
Yes.
And we did not have a lot of activities that were going on, because the SAULA was basically, it's an initiative of the Department of Justice. And we were getting our cues from the department as to when we should have our access to justice weeks, when we should run our programs, when we should have projects. It was not entirely up to us, the members or the leaders, because I was the first president of SAULA in the Northwest. So it was not entirely up to us when we should have our programs. We had to rely on the department when we should have our programs. So there was a time when the association was inactive in the province, and that's when I I left.
No, I think maybe you depended on the department for funding. I was the president in KZN, and we were running our programs.
Okay, yes, we were.
Thank you. But I just like you. There's just something about you. You know, when I came,
Commissioner.
yeah, when I came in here, I was tired because I had just eaten.
Okay.
And then there's just this aura about you that brings life. You know.
I'm
and-
humbled,
yeah,
Commissioner. Thank you.
And I see you've got one judgment where you actually wrote a judgment within a period of 2 weeks, and it was a matter that involved quite substantial amounts of monies.
Yes.
And you had silks in the matter.
Yes.
How did you find that matter? How easy it was for you to actually write that judgment and produce it so quickly?
In fact, it was during the time when I was starting to act. It was my first term. It was in 2013 because I started acting in July 2013, and in August this matter appeared before me. What I liked about the matter was that it was based on a very interesting topic, something that is not usual in. I also found that in the division as well. It was on provisional sentence, because I discussed with other judges, and they said to me, you know, it's very rare that you get this kind of procedure in this division. I don't know in the other high courts, and I found it very interesting. I was a bit intimidated when I heard that it will be silks appearing before me in the high court. It's only my second month. But like I said, you know, there's a judge in the division, Judge Hendricks. He said one thing to me that, you know what, there is no law for juniors and no law for seniors. The law is the law. All what matters is how you interpret the law. So you go to court with those seniors, you listen to what they have to say, and at the end of the day, the decision is yours, based on their arguments and what version you find to be believable. And I went into court, I listened to them, both SCs before me, very experienced SCs, I must say, on a very interesting topic. And I was eager to go and sit and read about this provisional sentence and write this judgment on it. And that's how I was motivated and pushed to write this judgment in such a short space.
And you wrote it, and they couldn't even appeal it. Eh?
No, they didn't, because provisional sentence, at times, if the defendant is not happy, he will come back and say, plaintiff, pay security, I want to go on trial. You know, but they didn't come back, so it means I beefed it up with good reason, and they couldn't doubt it.
Yes, thank
Yes.
you.
Thank you,
Chief
Commissioner.
Justice.
Commissioner Fourie.
Thank you, Chief Justice. Good evening.
Good evening, Commissioner.
You referred to the Mochumi matter that was set aside on appeal.
Yes, Commissioner.
I see there's a matter of Motwa versus the state as well.
Yes,
Can you
Commissioner.
briefly indicate to me what the issue was there?
In the Motwa matter, the issue was recent possession. In the regional court, the appellant had been convicted of robbery with aggravating circumstances based on recent possession. And on appeal, in fact, from the division, we had a dissenting judgment in the Motwa matter. I wrote the majority in the Motwa matter, believing that it was indeed recent possession, because the vehicle that was stolen from the complainant was recovered 4 days at the border of around Botswana, the border leading to Botswana, 4 days after it had been stolen. And the appellant was the one who was found in possession. He did not have proper papers, documents, and I believe that recent possession doctrine can stand. But when the matter went to the SCA, it was found that it cannot be recent possession.
Who wrote the dissenting judge?
It was Judge Gata.
You-
She did not say it wasn't recent possession, but she said it can only be recent possession for possession of stolen property and not for robbery with aggravating circumstances. That's where we differ. But the SCA then said, no, even for both, it cannot be robbery, it also cannot be possession. There's just not enough evidence to have convicted.
You said as a regional court magistrate that the civil side was a challenge to you.
Yes, it was,
Now,
Commissioner.
I see you've acted extensively from 2013,
Yes,
about
Commissioner.
9 terms, I think you indicated.
Yes, Commissioner.
And I see you said you sat in the motion court for both opposed and unopposed matters, and you also did civil appeals and you did civil trials.
Yes, Commissioner.
Can you give me a sense of the volume of civil matters that you've done? How does your roster normally work in the Northwest High Court?
I've done a lot of civil matters, both motions and trials, and appeals as well. And I must say that the work is increasing in the Northwest. It is such a small division with only 5 judges. If I exclude the JP, it's about 6 judges. And with that volume of work, it's increasing by the day. And I have done quite a number of civil trials, civil appeals.
If you have to take a guess, how many civil trials have you done that ran its full course and where you had to write judgments?
It was quite a few, Commissioner. You know, I'll have to think from the top of my head now.
Just a guess.
That ran a full course. You know, you've got this Minister of Police cases as well, and there are so many, and most of them had been those as well. They are lawful arrest cases. So I could say over 10, 15 matters that ran its course.
And where you
Full
had
trials,
to write
where I had to write judgments, yes.
And are you comfortable now with the civil side of things?
Very comfortable, Commissioner. I can get into any court now.
Thank you, Chief Justice.
Thank you, Commissioner Fourie. Commissioner Msomi.
Thanks, Chief Justice. Just one question from me, and it's a follow-up from what has just been raised by a colleague. If you look at your pack, there is a body called the National Forum of Advocates.
Yes.
They wrote a letter basically objecting to your appointment. And one of the things that they say is that you lack sufficient experience in the civil procedure of the High Court and the enforcement of the fundamental rights enshrined in the Constitution of the Republic of South Africa.
Yes, I have seen that comment.
Yeah, so that is
Commissioner.
what is your comment to that comment?
You know, it's unfortunate that the body forgot that I have been acting in the High Court for 9 terms. And I believe that during that period that I was exposed and acting in the High Court, I had an opportunity to do the matters that they are referring to. I mean, High Court civil litigation.
The long and short of it is that this comment is unwarranted, and
Yes, I can say so, Commissioner.
thank you so much.
Yes.
Thank you, Commissioner Msomi. You're excused, Judge Djaje.
Thank you very much, Chief Justice. Good evening.